Good day, this is Vice Admiral Trevelyan, and I'm here to talk about Season 9 of Star Trek Online. Yesterday we talked about the rep system update, and there are a lot of other updates that don't have anything to do with the rep system. I will, however, start out my video focusing on that again a little bit, because we have the rewards for the Undine class, which I didn't cover yesterday because we were getting a bit long in the tooth there. So here's the information about the rewards as I know them. There's going to be a new purchasing item for Undine stuff. You had the Borg implants for the Borg, and then you had the Voth implants for the Voth. Here you'll have isomorphic injections, which are basically items that allow Undine to shapeshift and blend in better. As far as we're concerned, however, that's going to be the money for the new Undine rewards that come with this reputation. There's going to be a 4-piece space set with this reputation. The deflector array looks pretty interesting. You can use that to enhance your starship weapon skills as well as accuracy, so that might be a good pair with a heavy assault-based ship, like maybe an Avenger, I think. And then there's the impulse drive and warp cores, and those will basically help you get around fluidic space a little better. And finally, there's the shield array. It's a covariant shield array, so it's going to have a lot of hit points, and it has, and this is, I think, a very interesting development, resistance to anti-proton damage. So all you people who are running around with anti-proton sets because of all the AP buffs that were given last year, it is about to get nerfed. In fact, it could theoretically get nerfed pretty hard, because when you suffer direct energy damage, if you have that shield, the shields have a chance to drain weapon power from the attacker. There's also going to be a 3-piece set for space. It's going to be a weapon. Actually, it's going to be 2 weapons and a console. The console gives you auxiliary and engine power, it helps targeting, and it gives a turn boost. So it'll help with cruisers and escort builds, I think. I don't know much about the weapons other than that it's going to be a phaser turret, and the other one's going to be a photon torpedo launcher. And they're both going to have this power called biomolecular incubation, which, from sort of reading it, it seems like it has some similarities to the Harping radiation thing. It sort of ticks down and then it does a pop for direct damage. Reading what's on the blog, that sort of seems to be what it does. It looks like it'll be a fairly interesting alternative to the Harping torpedo, if that's the case. One thing I do have to say about the weapons that are going to be offered from the Undine set is you'll be able to get both disruptor and phaser weapons associated with this set as a Klingon or as a Fed. So if you want to be a Klingon and get phaser weapons, you'll be able to get it. If you're Fed and you want to get disruptor, you can do that. So in comparison to previous releases, you aren't really all that locked down, and I definitely like to move towards that. And it'll be interesting to see some of these weapons in action once they're released. Finally, there's going to be a 3-piece ground set as well. It'll be a normal mix of armor, shield, rifle. The armor, in addition to protecting against energy damage, will also protect against psionic and toxic damage, so it'll be pretty handy against the Undine. But it has less physical kinetic damage resistance than usual. Also, the armor will enhance melee damage, and it can also give bonuses to dodge and run speed. The shield is a revenge shield. It'll attack anybody who attacks you, and it'll also protect you against psionic and control effects. And then there's the rifle. It can be either in phaser or disruptor energy. This could be a decent PvP rifle. Primary fire mode can apply expose, and the secondary fire can exploit. So that'll be good for the expose exploit 2-step if you want to try that out. Kind of like the Falchion, except it's a ranged weapon as opposed to a melee weapon. Also, its proc is a ground harping, so it'll be a pretty powerful weapon, I would say. There's one last thing to go over in reputation. Cryptic has redesigned reputation powers. They're not really so much powers anymore per se. I mean, they are still powers, but instead of actually being powers, they're now traits. In other words, when you unlock them, you have to enable them at the trait screen. As you can see from the screen here, there's more trait slots for you to play with. But the biggest change to the trait system is that most of these traits can be reconfigured on the fly when you're outside of combat. Cryptic's publicly stated that they basically want people to experiment with traits, and with the way things were done previously, people weren't really doing that, so Cryptic's made it pretty easy for you to switch out your traits at any time without having to spend a lot of respect tokens to do it. On the other hand, you can only have 4 ground powers and 4 space powers from your reputation active at any one time. So you'll have to make some choices before you go into battle, but overall you'll have a lot more flexibility in how you can configure your character going forward. Now, when I tried it out, there was a 30-second cooldown when I reassigned powers, so you probably don't want to do space PvP and then switch out to a ground PvE without taking a little bit of a breather first. And in addition to the structural changes, the powers for all 4 branches of Reputation that have been released up to this point are being significantly rejigged. For the most part, they're being made more powerful than they were previously, although some of the powers, instead of being buffed, are having different effects applied to them. Like, for example, the Romulan Tier 4 space ability, instead of having a placate effect, has now a weapons offline effect instead. In general, it looks like most or all powers that currently exist are having their effectiveness increased from anywhere between 50 to 100% of what they are right now. And now that we've got most of the new gameplay mechanics out of the way, I think it's time we took a look at the amazing new Earth Spacedock. This is the space portion of the map, as you can see here, and on the surface it doesn't look too different. I think I mentioned in the text box of my previous video, it looked like the shadows have been improved here somewhat, and you can sort of see that from this video right here. The shadows do look a bit softer. But if you look around low Earth orbit, you'll see that the scenery around here has changed pretty drastically. For example, it seems like one of the space stations has been moved or removed from the map, and there's another space station. It looks sort of like regular one from the second Star Trek film. Also, there's construction gantries around Earth Spacedock now, which will make it look even busier than it already is. Now let's take a look at the interior of Earth Spacedock, and this is where the amazing part comes in. The stuff we looked at previously was nice, but as you can see from the teleporter pad and looking out at the new open vista of the Earth Spacedock, it goes from good to amazing. I'll try to do a halfway decent grand tour of the station. There's a lot of little things in there that you'll have to see for yourself, but I'll just go around and show you where everything is. So when you log into Star Trek Online when Season 9 rolls around, it won't take you 300 years to find the exchange. The area up front that's recessed into the ground is the new shipyard. You don't have to go to a separate area of the map to configure or buy ships anymore. And as you can see, it looks much nicer, and there's a little area off to the side here which looks like it was lifted from Star Trek 3. But this area here has everything you'll need to set up your ship. Also, you'll see that there's a panel for bank and panel for mail in this area. This is one major change from Season 8 and prior, is that there's mail and bank kiosks all over ESD now. And these kiosks here right next to the shipyard will help you customize your ships a little bit faster than you would in previous seasons. Now just off of the shipyard is the infirmary and the club. We'll take a look at the infirmary first. There's nothing really new about the infirmary in terms of features, but it does look a lot nicer. As you can see from the footage that we have here, it looks a lot less generic than version 2.0 ESD did. Version 3.0 ESD infirmary actually looks like you would want to have sick people being treated there rather than them just being left to die on their own accord. Then you have the club right over here, and the club is very much different than what it is previously. For one thing, there's no irritating music going 24/7, and the DJ who was there previously is now a waitress, which is, in my opinion, pretty close to what her actual skill level is, showing that there is some justice in the Federation these days. And on the side of the station, opposite from the shipyard, you'll find Starbase Operations, which is basically a combination of all the important stuff that was on ESD into one little area. It includes Admiral Quinn's office and the Romulan ambassador woman who was added back in last season or two on the top floor, and then on the lower floor you have basically everything else, and that includes bridge officer training, skill respec, the whole 9 yards there. Next door to operations is the requisitions area, and it has all the characters you've seen from Season 8 and earlier standing around there offering their usual services, like the tailor and the 2 vendors. There's the EC vendor, and here's the dilithium vendor, and both vendors have some new items in relation to kits, which I'll get in probably in a third video if I do one. And further down on the side of the station, opposite of the bar and the infirmary, you'll find the exchange. It's near the vendors, and it functions more or less as every other exchange does, except that, as you can see, it's been redesigned and it looks a lot better. Unfortunately, the parkouring that you could do, climbing all the way to the roof of the station, that's no longer possible, unfortunately, with the way it's been designed, but overall, it's a very nice visual upgrade to the station. And there's one final area to the station that's basically this one big shuttle bay area. There's a panel all the way in back that you can fob to take you all the way down to Starfleet Academy. If you happen to be in the neighborhood of the mercantile section of the space station and you need to go down to SFA for some reason, you can hit the transporter right there and it'll get you right on down. this is all I'm going to do for today. I do think I'll do a third video. There's been some new information that's been uploaded that I hadn't investigated yet that I'll probably throw into the next video. Also, I'm going to get into kits and some of the other things that we didn't cover in this video. We'll get to all that stuff in the third video. I'm Vice Admiral Trevelyan. I hope you found this useful. Please hit like, please sub if you really liked it, and we'll talk to you all later. Have a good day.